Good morning to Ingrid. Good morning to Huddle. I expect you to chime in on this conversation this morning.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the Daily Huddle, where Tara and I are going to talk about relationships and communication today. And today we are going to talk about what is the risky side of being seen. And we've had some really juicy conversations about this because people come from all different directions on this. Some people want to be seen. They crave the attention, they crave the spotlight, and other people not so much. Anytime there's attention put on them or they feel like they're really truly being seen, it's scary. It makes them uncomfortable. And so we're going to dive into this today, ultimately with how can we deepen our relationships? Because anytime we are holding ourselves back or not feeling like we can really fully be in relationship or be vulnerable, we're not going as deep as we can and often want to. So that's really where we're headed today. And Tara's going to kick us off. She's got a little bit of background on this and a story.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. I'm really excited about this topic, but I have to first be really truthful about how it came to be something that I'm interested in. And so here's the truth about me. I have a 29-year-old daughter who has been in therapy, I would say, for the better part of the last 10 years. I call her the quintessential millennial, and I've learned a lot from her. And some of that is like the latest trends and lingo, I think, that comes out of therapy. And these are words like, that triggers me, and oh, I feel so seen. And okay, so here's the honest part. When I hear crap like that, I kind of like internally roll my eyes like, oh, give me a break. And I don't love that about myself because there's a reason why these words are trendy. And it's because they are helping people to be more self-aware and to grow and to be better versions of themselves. And I love all that stuff. So shame on me for the internal eye roll when someone says that I'm triggered by that. Or, you can even, I'm like, oh, come on. So I am going to wipe away that part of myself today that I don't love and really dig into why seems to be such a common topic that we hear people say, oh, I feel seen. I feel so much seen and heard. What is this about? So I'm going to make it personal for a minute. Holly, my youngest daughter, the one who's 29, who has been in so much therapy and the one I've learned so much from, she's the youngest of three. And she grew up in a house where, if I'm honest with myself, she wasn't seen. And the reason for that is that her older sister began to have seizures when she was 12, and that caused a lot of trauma in her life. And her older brother, in order to cope with the trauma, found adrenaline, danger, drinking to cope with the trauma. So Holly grew up in a house that equated trauma to love. And there was always something awful going on with her sister. She'd been bullied. She's in the hospital. She fell. She crashed down. Her medicine's not working. Her brother, when they got older, her brother, there was something always traumatic. The phone would ring, and if it was Wilson, it was, Mom, got in a fight, or a dog, or a wreck, or there's always something. And so, not to belabor this, but little Holly was screaming to be heard and seen. And I think that she can't be alone in this experience. Mm-hmm. So for her, being seen and heard is extremely important because it was not intentional, but I think that she felt like something dramatic had to be going on to be seen and heard. And so she's really worked hard to gain that. And I think, so this feels like it almost has nothing to do with the question, but here's what I've kind of uncovered, Catherine, is when she was seen and heard, she grew up in a family where she was embraced and loved. And I can feel good about that. So for her, being seen and heard and understood was not risky. She craved it.
Hmm.
But there's other folks, and that's what we're going to explore, who it was risky to be seen. And I'm one of those folks. So when I was growing up, if I let my guard down around my dad, inevitably something would come out of his mouth that stung or worse. And so I learned to keep my guard up because it does feel scary. So I'm kind of wondering, Catherine, these are two different ends of the spectrum as it relates to being seen. What's your relationship with this? I mean, how does this come up for you?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not really sure. I'd have to think about it honestly, because I would probably tend more on the spectrum towards being it being risky for me to be seen.
Mhm.
I don't crave the spotlight. I don't like want to be out front. I would rather be, back a little bit in the shadows. Um, and I'd have to really think about where that came from. I think the thing that I hear is our experience with this comes from where, like, our relationship to it now comes from our experience growing up, I would think, not being a
Very
therapist,
much so.
knowing, but yeah, like, to your point, if you're being seen and like letting your guard down results in, trauma, shaming, whatever, then you're naturally going to want to pull back versus somebody who was screaming for attention and never got it might be one who really wants the spotlight to have that like validated. So for me, I think, again, I'd really have to think about my experience in that and where it comes from. But I know for me that when I do let my guard down and I am vulnerable, it does feel really validating. I think that's probably human nature. Like, I think that is what it means to be in connection.
Hmm.
Um, but it's hard for me to do.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did. I guess here's what I would say. Sorry, it just dawned on me. I did learn, and I've talked about this before, in the like Southern culture, if you will, you put on a face. It's
Hmm.
pretty as pretty does.
Hmm.
And it's all whatever anybody sees is all that matters, not what's behind the scenes. And so I did learn to present and present and present. And so it took years and years and years in therapy and self-development work, to really learn what it meant to just let the guard down and let people see, who I was. So I guess that would be my relationship to it, or my closest relationship to it, in terms of it was not taught, and it was shame. It was shameful to show your air your dirty laundry where I came from. So it was,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, I mean, we can't be alone in that. The things that I've said to other people, my mom would be like, "Why did you tell them that?" And I'm
sometimes I'm
always
like,
like,
Tara
"Because it's
just said what?
Yeah. So Gio has popped on here and said, are we dancing around this? And I'm paraphrasing, but I think we're dancing around the word vulnerability. And we absolutely are, because to allow yourself to be seen means to let your guard down and allow people to see the full you. And I uncovered an article in Psychology Today about this topic, about the value of being seen in a relationship and how you might be able to let your guard down and become closer. Because interestingly, the danger in not allowing yourself to be seen, particularly in a relationship that you value, is that that relationship eventually will stagnate and it will just plateau.
Yeah, you can't go deep.
Yeah. And it also, I think this is really helpful to me, is, and I see your hand up. Hang on one second, Sorrel. I don't want to forget to share this, that it talked a lot about how it is that we have the strength and courage to be seen. And it brought it all down to this one thing. When you were growing up, was love unconditional?
Hmm.
And that goes back to Holly, my daughter, who always wanted to be seen. But yes, she knew love was unconditional. And I think that's why she has the strength to be so vulnerable. And for me, it was with my mom. With my dad, he always liked it when I was a champion.
Hmm.
So, anyway, a lot more to share about what we've uncovered, but Sorrel's already got his hand up. So,
Yeah.
and hey, Jim.
I don't want to interrupt, but this is like driving me mad, right? Uh,
Okay.
Tara and Catherine, is being seen the same as Well, is being seen a function of me being vulnerable, or is being seen a function of the other people's generosity? Like they see me, even though I'm not clamoring for attention.
Mhm.
I think it has to be both. I mean, I don't know. It's a good question. I wonder if it could just be one. But like, for instance, if I am in a space and can't see myself, I don't know that I'm going to have capacity to truly see you. So that's on me. You might be super vulnerable and it might just be like, oh my gosh, that is so uncomfortable, right? So I'm not seeing you, I'm having my own reaction.
Yeah, yeah. I'm playing on words, right? And just thinking that there is my opening myself up to be seen.
Hmm.
And that doesn't necessarily always guarantee that I will be seen.
Right.
Yeah.
I
So it
think
is risky, you know?
yeah. I,
Yes.
I think you're onto something because, and I love to think about what I'm about to share is you may open yourself up to others, but they're not ready for it.
Yeah.
My husband has a tendency when things get a little bit too intimate in conversations, particularly with other people, he'll make a joke, and that's his way of pulling back from something being so intimate. Um, and here is what I have learned about this, and it kind of lights up my soul to share this. As I have really worked on being much more open and honest about who I am and showing up authentically, some people, I think Chase mentioned this in his topic, it cause you to be rejected by some people. It absolutely will. Either they can't handle it, they
Mm,
don't agree with you, they're uncomfortable. And you know what? Great. Because you know what else happens? The people that you really can connect with, those passionate, authentic, growth-minded people, they flock to you. So by showing up as your authentic self, you begin to build a community around yourself of people that you really, really can, I think, click and vibe with. And that is a great way to
mm.
travel through life.
Wow. Wow. You know, I just got something. I'll say it and then I'll go off, right? Uh, Being seen is a function of my vulnerability, and I am always seen when I'm not attached to how the other people react or
Ooh,
respond.
yes,
Yeah. Thank you.
absolutely. Um, I heard it was either Adam Grant, I think it was Adam Grant say this, that the scary part, the risky part of allowing people to see us, to be seen and heard, is that we wonder, will we be accepted or rejected? I mean, it's kind of that
I
simple.
know.
And
Yeah.
we fear being rejected. And
Yeah.
I try to allow myself to celebrate those who reject me. I mean, there
I,
may be everybody can't love us. I mean, as my friend Kathleen says, I'm not for everybody, Tara.
I mean, I think you're right. That keeps running around in my head that I think that's really what we're pointing to. And remember, the brain is designed to keep us safe. And so if being vulnerable feels risky, then, we could tend to like, it's interesting because do something else that makes us feel more accepted. But really, it's an illusion.
Mhm.
Because are we really being accepted if we're being accepted for something that we're not, it's not our authentic self? Do you know what I mean? So it's like
Sounds
interesting
like a
to,
lot of work.
right,
Mhm.
right. But yeah, and I think, it is part of us. That's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We need to be part of a group. We need to be connected. That's, we're beings that are wired for connection. But it is interesting, I think, because the easiest thing to do you would think would be yourself. So you
Mhm.
are
Yep.
at your core. But why is that the hardest thing to do? To be seen as just who you are for some, me being one of them.
Well, I think the fear of rejection, right?
Could
So if we
be.
could change our relationship with rejection, even in like a partner type
But what
relationship.
makes us think that being ourselves would lead to rejection? It's kind of mind-boggling if you think about it, because logically it doesn't make any sense. Why would
It doesn't. You're so right, because I think what we're trying to do when we hold back from being seen is we're trying to present perfection. And nobody wants a perfect person in their life. How
Or
exhausting
present
is
something
that?
else. I might, drink a bunch of alcohol with friends because everybody's doing it and that makes me feel, but yuck, that's not who and so it's like maybe perfection, or it may just be something that the crowd is doing that would make me feel. So it really is interesting when you think about why would my brain make up that being myself could potentially lead to rejection? It is, this more than anybody, that ultimately you can feel when somebody is right there with you. It's sizzly when they're like themselves, you're connected, they're in their purpose, it's all there. You can feel when somebody is presenting and trying to give you a show and make, or, present themselves as perfect and there's no connection. It's sort of like confusing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it does beg the question.
I was in a situation once where I realized everyone in the room was very much different from me politically. And did
Mhm.
I stand up on a with a megaphone? Nope. I went to bed.
Yeah.
Giovanni, you got something on your mind. The most vulnerable dude. Talk to us.
Thank you for saying the most vulnerable dude. I like that. I struggle with this a lot in my own life. This kind of I thinking of, am I being myself? Am I being authentic out here? And I also struggle with belonging. Like not coming across in such a way that rubs people in the wrong way. Not necessarily because I really care about what they think, but I really care how I land. I really care how things come
Mm-hmm.
across. And I find some people, or many people, when they think of letting loose or being themselves or being straight, and I find them more irresponsible, intellectually irresponsible, more than, they're just being themselves. And many times I see their lack of commitment to awareness rather than being themselves. And then when they get striked by reflection, they go, "Oh man, well, I shouldn't have said it that way," and so, or else I have found myself saying that to myself. I want to be, and I admire people who are just unapologetically however they are, while at the same time I admire that, yet I see how they are just a truck, just pushing through um, who they are to others and leaving a ton of people offended. Yet at the same time, so many people nowadays get offended by the smallest, insignificant things. And if someone says, how could you be offended by that? That is so small. What were you thinking? They're like, oh my God, I need support group now. And
Yeah.
yet, I find myself personally, I find myself not being strong in the world with my own voice, because the people who come together to find their own support group um, have such a loud voice that now prevents them from getting out of their own way,
Mm-hmm.
and also they create such a shame around a particular debate that decent, normal human beings who care for the greater good, they'd just rather not be part of the conversation. And that's how I'm kind of struggling with all of it myself as you guys are speaking.
It's interesting. I think what came up for me when you were talking is, and Tara and I talked about this before, is we all have our default tendencies. Like, let's say it's to be the truck that barrels through, and this is how I am, and this is who I am, and I don't care who I leave in my wake. That could be someone's tendency. But so their growth edge is not going to be trying to be more themselves or more edgy. Their
Seeing,
growth edge is going to be trying to pull back a little bit and seeing what they can learn from that. What I'm hearing in what you're saying is there is a way in which we try and create these static confines for ourselves that are safe. And I might be misinterpreting, but if I go to the support group and I have this group of people around me who believes this way, then I feel safe and I know I'm right. But that's not in the fluid interaction of life, you know? And so it makes me curious that, like, what about in the moment? How does it feel? And how am I if I am totally myself? And what is the repercussions of that? Or what if I try to be able to pull myself back if that's my growth edge? So that's what I hear is, is it that people sometimes try and create these static confines that just keep us safe and I get to cling to something and say, this is it, and I believe this and I'm safe? Because that's not how life works. We need to be in the moment, in the emotions, let them flow through us always.
Yeah, what you said, the fluid interaction of life. That's really cool. Go
yeah,
ahead,
I
Tim.
always like how she talks about growth edge. I need to remember that term. You know what, when you were talking, Gio, it brought me back to what Sorrel was saying is we came on and started talking about, is it scary? Are we allowing ourselves to be seen? And you're talking about people who are fearlessly seen at all times. And to me, the opposite side of that is, are they seeing the people around them? And my suspicion is probably not so much. And that gives me something to walk away with today. And it is to notice the people that maybe would like to be seen more and take the time to investigate and explore and ask really rich questions from the people who maybe want to be seen, but they are afraid, and to
I'm
help
going to
them.
challenge you, Tara, right now. That
Okay.
is what you are really good at. I don't
Oh,
think that's your growth edge. I think your growth edge is being seen.
I do. I mean, people on this are probably like, that's not really true, but I can tend to, well, you can explain it because I do it all
Well,
the time.
Tara, if you sit down with Tara for any length of time and she starts talking about herself, in about 36 seconds, she's going to say, oh, enough about me. Oh, enough about me.
Better.
You have gotten much better. But that's what I mean is, like, you are always interested in the people around you. You are asking questions of them all the time. And now please don't stop doing that. It's part of the beauty of who you are. But it's interesting that that's what you heard in that. And then that's where you go towards. It's like, actually, let people see you more. If that's where your discomfort lies, you know,
Yeah.
that's where we always end up here at a certain point. It's like, it's just about knowing yourself. And what do I want to do to grow a little bit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're so right. You know, the reading on this, y'all, was a lot of what I read was more specific, I think, to like really intimate relationships, and not necessarily romantic, but just intimate relationships. And it makes me think back. This is kind of funny, but it really speaks to this in a small way, but a big way. When I first started dating my now husband, Mike, we've been together over 15 years. When I first started dating him, what do people that date do? They go and they eat. And so I would nibble at my food because, you know, I didn't want to eat very much around him because I don't know what the hell why women do that. Anyway, months rock along and I start eating more and more. And he starts saying, oh, you are hungry today. And then the next meal, wow, you are hungry today. And I finally said, you know what? This is how I really eat. I mean, it's such a small example, but it's what we do. We show up trying to present one person. And if we think about what we're talking about today, which is letting ourselves be seen, it's peeling away those masks and letting people see the real us. And I don't think it can happen all in one sitting. You know, for me, it's taken 15 years.
Yeah. And I think it's worth saying too, it matters if it's a safe environment to do that. Like, and we have to determine within ourselves, what are the flags going off? Is it just our brain trying to keep us safe? Or is this really not a safe place? Because I can sense I am
Yeah.
going to be rejected and it's going to hurt, you know? I think it's worthwhile to pay
Mhm.
attention to ourselves in that.
Yeah. Um, you know, I would love to share something I can go through it quickly, but I feel like it might be helpful to those who are thinking like, yeah, I wonder if this applies to me, if I could let myself be seen more. And I want to say that to me, the value of it and Catherine, you and I have talked about this. When we are courageous enough and vulnerable enough to let people see the real us, it gives this amazing ability to feel free, and it elevates relationships to this awesome level of joy, which I talk a lot about. And Psychology Today gave 5 things to consider if you think maybe you are someone who's not letting yourself be seen. And I want to share those in case they're helpful to anyone. So one is if you tend to feel lonely, even though you have many friends, that could be a sign that you're not letting others see you. The other is, do you keep people at arm's length? And we've talked about this, masking a part of yourself. The third one, this is interesting. Do you overfunction in relationships? And this is me. You focus so much on the other's needs and don't voice your own. Interesting. The fourth one is you strive for perfection and because you fear rejection. The last one is, do you self-sabotage relationships, making sure that you're the one to be the rejecter before you get rejected? So anyway, I thought those were kind of interesting. We only have a few minutes left, but I'm hoping that somebody has a question or comment around this juicy topic. And while we're waiting, I'll pull up the comments.
Theo.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
One of the things I am taking away from this conversation of being seen, being vulnerable, growing, seeing other people, I continue to struggle. And what I am taking away from today's conversation is that I really struggle seeing other people. And here's what I mean. I'm not calling myself in a disempowering way. I'm seeing something here for me. I am seeing the lens in which I see life right now, which is people should be strong, is the lens I see life. And people should man up, or women should man up. Life is hard and for everyone. And I have this, I don't want to call it arrogant, but I have this kind of strong view that those of us who choose to don't see ourselves as victim of the circumstances, to confront that we see ourselves as victim of the circumstances, then we should get out of the way. And that's those of us who see ourselves that way, or those people who see themselves that way. And that's what I'm seeing. It's kind of how I see the lens. And as a leadership coach and as a coach, I didn't see this before. I tend to be soft and tender and kind to kind of get you out of the way. And that's kind of an asshole thing to do, you know? It's what I'm seeing that I'm doing. So this is the first time I see it. I'm having like this aha moment of something about myself. And I'm taking on seeing people from this conversation as an opportunity of being vulnerable. I'm taking on seeing people, and let's see what opens up. And I'm human, so who knows?
Yeah, that's
You
cool.
being nice because you're trying to get us out of the way, Gio.
No.
Y'all, I know we're up on time, but Fareed brought up a really awesome topic. You're still here, Fareed? I definitely want to just touch on this, if I may. He asks, how do we equate being seen with introverts and extroverts? And I have a very strong thought on this. And I'm going to tell you that most of the extroverts that I know are not necessarily vulnerable people. They're very social, they're very chatty, they have that ability to have that gift of gab and talk a lot about fun things. And I don't want to stereotype all of them, but I don't think those two things really can even be compared. I think introverts and extroverts both can be vulnerable versus have their guard up. That's my suspicion, but it'd be something cool, really cool to explore. So thank you for bringing that up, Fareed. I think that's pretty cool. Sorrel, we got something.
Yeah, as Gio was speaking and you were interacting with him, I'm seeing for myself that maybe it's impossible for me to see another unless in the moment I'm practicing being seen and being vulnerable myself.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's all I'll say for now.
Yeah, I think it's something for us to think about on both sides of the coin. I really like that. How about you, Catherine? Any last words of wisdom about the growth edge?
I think it comes, know thyself, you know,
Yeah.
and just be honest with yourself. You want to grow in one area or another, just be honest and go for it.
Yeah. Thank
And
you.
I love what you said about freedom. It all points towards freedom, and who doesn't want that?
Yep, you know I'm all about that. Let your freak flag fly, one of my favorite sayings. So, with that, we will end with our tenets for the daily huddle. And I think that love has to come first today because there is really, at the end of the day, only two emotions: fear, which we've talked about, and love. So let's go with love, and let's remember to be generous, to give of our heart, our time, our vulnerability, our space. And don't take life too seriously. Allow yourself to throw your head back and laugh and let those endorphins just completely flood your body and help yourself to stress less. Do that by leading with love and giving and laughter, and also by putting mostly plants into your body, by getting rest and hydrating yourself. And of course, get up off that butt and move that body. Thank you all so much for being here on the Daily Huddle. We adore you all. We thank you for being with us, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.